billahi minash shaitani rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to On the Couch with me, Zainab Bean. On the Couch aims to unpack, deal and discuss issues that we don't often want to address, but issues that most certainly affect you or those close to you. So hear the difference here on Radio 786 on 100.4 FM. This is On the Couch. With home being an essential place of safety during the COVID-19 pandemic, we are continuing our series exploring South Africa's affordable housing programs with housing activist NGO Ndifuna Ukwazi. Now this week, as part of Women's Month, we look at the role of women in the housing crisis. To start our discussion, let's look at this comment from the Western Cape government, who put out a statement saying the provincial DSD is currently funding 25 shelters in the Western Cape that can accommodate victims and their children up to 3 months, and 4 emergency shelters that accommodate victims up to 3 weeks. Shelters provide the basic needs that include safe accommodation, protection, food, clothing and emotional support such as trauma, debriefing and therapeutic counseling provided by a social worker. Now, to assist with the reintegration, victims are also provided with skills development opportunities to assist with the economic empowerment of the victim. Now, empowerment of the victim starts from the point of admission at the shelter, where the victim's needs will be assessed, including whether the victim has a permanent place to stay. The assessment report will influence the services of interventions conducted with the victims. Last week, we spoke about the upgrading of Informal Settlements Program, or the UISP, which allows municipalities to apply for grants from the provincial government to redevelop existing informal settlements by incrementally or little by little providing infrastructure, tenure, security and also access to basic services. Now, in this week's discussion, we will look at what it means to be a woman and homeless. We also look at what options are available to women on the streets, particularly those who are seeking safety and shelter from gender-based violence, which often takes place in the home. We have with us Apiwe Ngalo, community organizer for Ndifuna Ukwazi, and Karen Gelderblom, the first applicant in this case that is taking the city of Cape Town to court regarding the discriminatory bylaws. Welcome to both of you and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Now, let's start off the discussion. So I do understand here that there's a distinction between general shelters and the specific safe places mentioned by the provincial government in their statement. But Karen, as someone who has experienced homelessness, how safe have you felt in shelters as a woman?
For me personally, I wasn't safe at all. I felt safe at all. I was at a Haven Shelter in Major Street, and while I was there, one of the night supervisors sexually harassed me. And I was so bad at one point that when I came from church one Sunday night, he actually closed the door and he locked me out.
Wow.
And it was way before my curfew. And I had to start working on an EPW job the next day.
Sure.
But I can be glad that I used to live outside the shelter too, because I promise you I would not have made it outside that night if I had known those people.
Yeah.
So for me, and I'm not the only one, there's a lot of other women that can tell you the same thing. A lot of the women don't trust being in the shelter, they don't feel safe.
Okay, so Apiwe, how many shelters for women are there in our province?
Of the 21 shelters for victims of violence listed on the Western Cape government's website, 16 of those shelters are open to women and their children specifically. But a serious problem is that in addition to the challenges expressed by Karen, there are just not nearly enough shelter beds for people living on the streets. A 2020 study revealed that there are currently only 20 shelters that are providing a total of 2,180 shelter beds in the city of Cape Town. In addition, there are only 2 safe spaces that the city has created to address the shortage of shelter space. That provides 293 spaces. This amounts to a total of 2,473 spaces for people experiencing homelessness in the city. The study further found that a total estimated number of street-based people in Cape Town is 4,357. There are thus 11,884 street-based people that are not able to be accommodated by the existing shelters.
You're listening to Radio 786 on 100.4 FM. This, of course, is On the Couch. And today I am speaking to two ladies as part of Women's Month. We're looking at women in the housing crisis. And of course, in this week's discussion, we will look at what it means to be a woman and also homeless. And earlier, Karen has explained to us just her experience, which of course is something that really just gives me goosebumps. So I want to speak to Karen again and just look at the comment from the Western Cape government says that shelters can accommodate victims of GBV and their children for up to 3 months. In your opinion, is that enough? And where do women and children go after that their stay is over?
Exactly, where do they go afterwards? To a house to protect somebody for 3 months. You know, I know quite a few women that have gone to the domestic housing. They actually live their spouses. And they end up like places like and you know what? After 3 months, they don't have another option. They have to leave because somebody to make place for somebody new. And that's the majority of them end up going back to the abusive relationship because what happens is they don't have else to go to. You understand? Either that, if they end up on the street, chances are social development is going to take the children.
Yeah.
So the only other thing for them to do is go back to their spouse. But I feel that more can be done. I feel that there can be much more can be done because besides people living in houses that are going through domestic violence or gender-based violence, it's happening to women on the street as well. They don't ask that. They never ever get that option of help.
Karen, so in your opinion, why is it important for us to focus on homeless women in particular? What are the challenges that homeless women face which are different to anyone else?
You know, I'll speak from my personal experience. You know, one thing that was the most degrading for me was not being able to find an open toilet at night. So always closed, always. At 4 o'clock they closed. I know the station is a bit later, but it's so sleepy there, and because it's deserted at night. But you know what? For a woman to go and go into the bushes, they're not sure who's there, you know? And besides that, you know, the fact that a lot of homeless women, men come from their houses and they come and they want to prostitute homeless women because it's cheap, you know? Than paying for prostitutes. But bottom line is, women, homeless women, have so much challenges. You know, for a homeless woman to be sick and must be able to rest her head down without being chased up and to be degraded by security. You know, you lose your self-confidence. You know, and that's what happened to a lot of women. And that's why I think they end up really going into prostitution to make money, thinking that they can get out of it. But it's only feeling deeper.
Now we also have Apiwe on the line with us. Apiwe, what is the historical context of women and housing?
Well, the combination of statutory and customary laws favor male ownership of property, and it disadvantages women's rights in owning land and property. Going back in history, it's not uncommon for a woman's assets to be controlled by her father or a male member of the family. And if she entered marriage, the property would be controlled by her husband. Before specific laws were passed to improve the rights of women, husbands had both legal ownership as well as managerial rights over a woman's personal property. We also can't ignore the social context that we exist in and how this affects women. The interests of poor women in South Africa cannot be disentangled from the housing challenges that they face. Housing is central to women, as the domestic production of life and livelihood is key to them. A nation that is concerned about its children's education and their safety and security, and the safety and security of the vulnerable population, cannot afford to be gender blind in delivering housing. Unequal power relations between men and women in relation to housing needs to be addressed in order to promote equality through gender-aware housing delivery process.
Mm-hmm.
And the system of patriarchy, women are still getting paid less for the same work that same work done with men, but they're still getting paid very little. Women are not able to participate in the economy if they do not have access to housing. We also have to deal with the fact that homes are dangerous places for women. A woman can also be easily forced or forcibly evicted from her home or her land with no recourse whatsoever. She can also be trapped in situations of violence and abuse simply because she has nowhere else to go. And there's also the HIV link to this. The link between impoverished housing conditions, HIV, and AIDS are multiple and complex. The immense human settlement challenges in urban slums, overcrowding, 10-year insecurity, inadequate water, sanitation, and basic services are intensified by the impact of HIV and AIDS. For example, high densities, overcrowding, poor housing conditions increase the risk of opportunistic infections. Inadequate water and sanitation increase the diseases burden and pose challenges to providing home-based care. Surviving family members and orphans often lose their homes because they cannot afford the housing payments and because of inheritance practices that typically disadvantage women. Housing and Human Settlement Act as an agency needs strategies to address these and provide adequate housing.
Now, has there been an increase in women who have found themselves homeless during COVID?
The director of the Safe House and vice chairperson of the Western Cape's Women's Shelter Movement has said that the Western Cape saw a decrease in gender-based violence cases at the beginning of lockdown, but the numbers started to increase after the extension was announced. They believe that this is because the women who had been silently suffering domestic violence could no longer bear staying any longer. She says that perhaps one of the reasons that at the beginning of the lockdown, the fear of the virus, the unknown, was worse than the fear of the known, the threat of domestic violence.
Now, Karen, you want to add to that?
Yes, I would say that there's much more women on the street now currently, but I feel that there's a lot of women alone. I'm not talking in the sense of couples, and it is even more dangerous as well because people identify you very quickly as being a newbie. You understand? And then chances are that women being lured in the wrong direction is there, but also that I find that there's a lot of women on the street where they actually have formed this like a group. If they see there's somebody new, they will actually include them. They will tell them if they can sleep us tonight and talk to them and encourage them to go back home. But then you must remember one thing, people don't just end up on the street. There's reasons why they end up on the street. And a lot of people end up on the street if they do a false name, with their own intentions or they don't want to be found.
Absolutely. Now, I'm speaking to Ampiwe and also Apiwe as well as Karen, and they're both talking about women in the housing crisis. We're looking at women and homelessness, and that is really the topic on the couch this evening here on Radio 786 and 100.4 FM. Now, Apiwe, notwithstanding all the issues with the shelter system, how does a survivor of domestic violence go about getting into a shelter?
So what you do is visit the Western Cape government's website. That is www.westerncape.gov/directories/facilities/987, or go to the nearest police station and ask for assistance. There is also an emergency line that people can call at 0800 428 428. That is 0800 428 428.
Now, Karen, we have spoken about the inadequacy of the shelter system. What would you say would be a more sustainable solution to meet homeless women's housing needs?
You know, there's something new that's going on. It's called, like, we refer to it as independent living, right? As the rehousing collective, okay? And especially for homeless people. Women include, especially women, really. But let me tell you something. The fact that if we can only get more people to do, to fund these projects, then there'll be less women on the street. Because I promise you, I'm in a place now, in Observatory, and it's part of the rehoming collective, independent, and we pay a certain amount, and you know what? We help each other, and the guys here, they're not flirty, they don't try their luck like what happened to me in the shelter. You understand? But if we can get the city of Cape Town or the national government for that matter to just fund these projects. And that's why you will see more people getting off the street, because from the people, I'm in the second phase now. I'm in the second lot of people that is in the house. And let me tell you something, from the first people, they had to sit with their families, and they back with their families, they work. You understand? It's been very successful thus far. So just imagine if government or City of Cape Town can fund the rehoming collective. Just imagine how much success it will be. So then more people will get off the street. First of all, the help they need, because I promise you, there's lots and lots of mental cases. Me, I never wanted to admit because I was suffering from depression, and it was only after I left the street that I realized and I could acknowledge that I suffer from depression due to what I've seen and heard on the street. You understand? But you can get all the help for all of it. You understand? And that is what people need to be done. Because when you go to the shelter, they will take you in, and after the first 2 weeks, they call in the office and they tell you that you must be sheltered. They don't tell you, they don't ask you that how you feel. By then, what matters is the shelter to you. You understand? That's a lot of the people end up, especially women on the street, that are so thrown in it. It's all people, women that come from the shelter, couldn't pay for the shelter anymore. But they never got work, they never got the treatment they needed. They never got the professional help they needed.
It's Radio 786 on 100.4 FM. So we are taking a look at women in the housing crisis, particularly focusing on women and homelessness. And we look at what options are available to women on the streets, particularly those who are seeking safety and shelter from gender-based violence, which often takes place in the home. We have Apiwin Galo, community organizer for Ndifuna Ukwazi, as well as Karen Gelderblom, the first applicant in the case that is taking the city of Cape Town to court regarding the discriminatory bylaws. And so we have them both on the couch this evening. Now, Apiwe, let's talk about some of the key cases led by Ndifuna Ukwazi. It seems most of them are led by women applicants. Tell us about that.
Yes, this is true. So women have historically been disproportionately negatively impacted by the lack of access to adequate housing and by evictions, but they've also been at the forefront of the struggle for dignified homes. Women face ongoing discrimination in respect to access to land, housing to near, security and ownership. But women still largely carry the societal burden of caring for the home and dependents, and have always needed to fight to secure safe shelter for themselves and their families. The truth has been reflected in some of our major cases, which are all led by women. Firstly, the Tafelberg case, which challenged the sale of a large piece of publicly owned land that was urgently needed for housing for workers in Sea Point. Women who worked as domestic workers, carers, nurses in the area had been struggling to secure that site alongside others for many years by the time the organization joined them. Promises had been made but not fulfilled, but the community led by women didn't give up, ultimately winning the case that could change the game of how public land is used in Cape Town. The applicants who ultimately brought the case to court are Tozama Angela Adonisi, Pumzan Tuntula, Sharon Daniels, Selina Lahane, and Sheila Madigane, who disposed on part of the RTC. These are all women. The next case is the Brommel case, which challenged the eviction of residents from Brommel Street whom the city could not provide alternative accommodation within a decent distance from their former homes. This meant that the eviction would result in the displacement or homelessness. These families are fighting back so that gentrification does not see them removed from the area they've always known, where their lives and support networks are based. Charnel Commando is the first applicant in this case and is the spokesperson for the applicants. And there's the Gelderblom case, but I'll ask Aaron to tell you about this because she herself is the lead applicant in this matter. Karen, can you please add to this?
Yes, no problem. You see, I would refer to the Southern case as one that needs to be adhered to, because at the end of the day, we're going to have a lot of women with criminal records, because that is what's currently happening. Excuse me. What's happening is they're using bylaws. The bylaws fairly discriminated against people living on the street. As you people are aware, they are anti-poor, anti-homeless, and the city is one. And what they are doing is they are looking to find to amend the bylaws where they can actually arrest homeless people if they want to go to a shelter. What I can tell you is, if we do not stop the city and law enforcement, then what's going to happen is we're going to sit with a city of Cape Town is going to have a whole, you can say, a community of people that is all going to have criminal records. Because what they are doing, they want to criminalize us. They don't give us there isn't the facility for us to use to go and to toilets and wash and that. So if we do it outside, where else must we do it? But what they could to say that the homeless people urinate, but I've seen homeless people that come to the gardens and they're so drunk in it, they don't care who's seeing them while they urinate. It's not an issue for them to urinate. It's just a bad thing when homeless people do it. And I just feel that we need to stop them, because so many homeless women, and I speak from experience, has at one stage felt that maybe I just don't have the rights. Maybe what the law enforcement is doing is right. Maybe what the city is doing is right. I have in my dignity stripped. Maybe I deserve it. You know, there comes a time when you do feel all these things. And you know what? The moment that law enforcement officer told me I don't have the rights, what the rights? You don't have rights. It sparked something in me. I had to tell him that I do have rights. And that is something you can't take away from me. You understand? And, you know, you come to the stage where, and I feel mostly women do it. I don't know why men fear doing things like this. But I feel that, you know, at that stage you just feel enough is enough now. You can do what you want to. Because I promise you, because on the moment I opened my mouth, I couldn't sleep on my same spot anymore. I couldn't sleep on the same spot 2 nights. I just sleep here, there, and everywhere. And if they got me on the spot, there would be other people, but they would not worry about the other people. They would only take my stuff because they wanted me to know that I was told. But you know what? Women, I think women are much stronger. They stand up for what they believe, because the fear that they impose on me, they took it back. Every day they did something, they took it back. I don't fear them anymore. As far as I'm concerned, they don't hold anything over me anymore.
And that Karen speaking to us, of course, this evening here on the program On the Couch. And Karen is the first applicant in the case that is taking the city of Cape Town to court regarding the discriminatory bylaws, and that's Karen Gelderblom. Now, just on a final note, Apiwe and Karen, any closing remarks from your side? Apiwe.
Yes. Angela Davis once said, Black women have had to develop a larger vision of our society than perhaps any other group. They have had to understand white men, white women, and Black men. They have had to understand themselves. When Black women win victories, it is a boost for virtually every segment of society.
Karen, your side.
You know what? I believe that Black women of color need to be heard. They have a lot to say, and they need to start saying it. They need to be heard. Their voice needs to be heard. Because if not, we're going to end up back where we were a couple of years ago. Because I promise you that there's so much white supremacy currently. They will step all over us, and all our hard work will be in vain.
Mm-hmm. Karen and Piwe, thanks so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure being able to speak to you about women in the housing crisis, particularly focusing on women and homelessness. And of course, we also looked at some of the options that are available to women on the streets, particularly those who are seeking safety and shelter from gender-based violence, which often takes place in the home. And we spoke to community organizer for Ndifuna Ukwazi, Piwe Ngalu, as well as Karen Helderbrom, the first applicant in the case that is taking the city of Cape Town to court regarding the discriminatory bylaws, and they spoke to us this evening on the couch. Just a reminder, if you are in need of support, you can please file a case on the website, that is www.westerncape.gov.za/directories/facilities 987. Go to the police or call the emergency line at 0800 428 428. That is 0800 428 428. To both my guests, we say many thanks to you and all of the very best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it for On the Couch for today. Until the next time or next week, inshallah, we bid you assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.